Good evening and welcome to Building Audacity's podcast, Civically Speaking, a podcast and show where Boston youth engage civic leaders in real conversations around inequality, justice, and the future of the commonwealth. We ask questions on education, homelessness, food justice, health equity, racial justice, among other topics, to learn more about our guests' values and visions for Greater Boston. This evening's podcast, featuring mayoral candidate John Barros, is part of our initiative to help our audience learn more about local elections and make an informed decision this fall. I'm now going to pass it over to my colleague, Harrison Clark, to introduce our honorable guest, Boston mayoral candidate John Barros.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. I would just like to introduce our great candidate, John Barros. He's a leader in the community and a trailblazer in education. And Mr. Barros, if you want to say something really quick about yourself.
First, Harrison and Kristen, just wanted to say thank you for being here with me today and allowing me the opportunity to talk to you guys. It's an honor. A little bit about myself. Born and raised in Roxbury. I have been blessed to be in a neighborhood that has a tradition of activism and self improvement. And so I got involved at a very young age. At the age of 14, I became a community organizer. And as a first generation immigrant in Boston and Roxbury, I was just trying to find my way, but it's easier to do it with a bunch of neighbors who were trying to do the right thing. So we helped to build and change our community through the works of the Dudley Street Neighborhood Initiative, where I became the executive director and helped to lead that organization for 13 years. We, through that work, brought affordable housing. We transformed vacant lots into parks, urban agriculture. We helped small businesses. We really tried to create a neighborhood that could work for the people who were there by building a neighborhood without displacing the residents. Really proud of that work. And then we promoted community ownership. As we build our neighborhoods, we should be able to have some ownership of that neighborhood, and we should be able to benefit from the gains of the improvements in that neighborhood. I was lucky enough to go to college, first generation college goers in my family. Went to Dartmouth, came back, got my master's at Tufts. I did school at the University of South Africa in Cape Town at their business school. I've got a certificate from the New York Institute of Finance. Really a big fan of education. And so anytime I got a chance to do any kind of leadership development or education, I would take it. But then I had to, make sure that I came back to the neighborhood and continued to do that work at DS&I. So, really proud to have established the largest urban land trust in the country at Dudley Street Neighborhood Initiative, where we acquired, half of the vacant lots in our neighborhood through a partnership with the city and converted 32 acres of land in our neighborhood to permanent improvements. So excited about that work and wanted to do more of that work, which is why I ran for mayor.
Thank you for such a generous introduction. And we are honored to have you on our show today, as we mentioned at the beginning. So thank you for taking some time out of your busy day to come and speak with us. And so in order to jump right into our questions, and the main reason why we're here, I would like to frame this evening's discussion by learning more about your personal story and how it relates to your vision of Greater Boston. Right, I've heard a bit about your activism coming up in your teenage years. I've heard about even how that's spilled over into your activism on campus and beyond in the sector of education and economic development. But to start, I'm curious how your life story and experiences shape your understanding of effective and responsible leadership.
Well, the thing that I learned very early on as a young man doing community organizing is leadership is about we more than it is about me. I remember very early on the organizers at the Dudley Street Neighborhood Initiative really saying to me, look, it's about, getting together with your peers and the other young people in the neighborhood and figuring out if there was a common vision we can come to, because the common vision of a number of people can be far more powerful than what you think you want to do, right? And so that was a lesson I learned early. And one of the first things we did very early on was make sure that we captured, Kristen, this goes to some of the work that you're doing, brother. We captured people in our neighborhood on a mural that it was the first major project that I did. It was the mural's name ended up being Unity Through Diversity. So we captured diverse faces of folks in our neighborhood as heroes, right? People who matter to us, and we put it on the side of a building. And I remember the meeting after meeting, getting the vision after vision, talking to young person after young person. And back in the day, this was the late 80s, early 90s, graffiti was big, breakdancing was big. And so there were some folks worried after we put this beautiful mural up, was it going to get tagged? Were people going to come in and mess it up? But the youth in the neighborhood was so clear that it was everybody's mural. We had talked to so many different young people that the only tagging that happened was people started adding their names to the list of participants in those youth group meetings that we had. And that was powerful. At the same time, while we were doing this mural, and it took us 2 summers to get it done because we were doing so many meetings and design. At the same time that we were doing this mural, one of the young people that were involved got caught up in this police sweep for a murder that happened in Upham's Corner of a veteran that came home. This was the Tasty Chickens murder. I don't know if you brothers remember that. He was picked up, and there were a bunch of folks picked up who weren't involved. He was one of them. But he spent 5 years in pretrial before they can bring the case to trial. And right before he got picked up, we were doing this mural together, and he's an artist, and he was really involved in it. He got picked up and spent 5 years, and he's just, he was never on the streets. It wasn't his thing, and the 5 years in jail didn't do him any well, and it cracked him, right? And so he came out with mental health issues. But the first thing he did when he came out is he went to that mural. And so I think I got a phone call the next day, basically saying, "Hey, Carlos is at that mural. He added something to it, right?" And then the next day I ran to the mural to try to see what he added, and he added the T-shirt of Reggie Lewis. And it came back to me because he was the brother in one of those meetings that was saying, look, we need to, as we capture everybody in our neighborhood on that mural, all the local heroes, we need to also capture Reggie Lewis. And he came in and he added that T-shirt, and and I just felt so full circle on it, right? Because here's a brother that got swept up unjustly in a murder rap that he didn't commit. The courts exonerated him, and he came out, and it was like it was never stopped, right? That was the thing he was thinking about when he was in there. It came out, boom. He added that jersey to the mural, and continues to be something of an experience for me that continues to echo this lesson of leadership is about bringing people together. And it's about the we and not the me, right? But I didn't realize even the we, like the folks who came to some meetings, they felt like they needed to add their names to the mural. They did that, right? The brother who came in and spent a few meetings with us, but got picked up on a sweep, came back and added his name. And so even the people that you touch in your leadership, right, that you don't stay connected to, you impact, and many times that impact sometimes comes back to you, sometimes doesn't, but it really reminds me of the people that we touch that we sometimes don't even realize, right, with the process and the work that we do. And so, I've been doing community organizing for a long time, been trying to help people along the way. I've always, been proud of the work, but sometimes you can't even see the work that we do. So I want to just share that life experience with you two brothers. I know you guys are doing some positive things. and as you do positive things, I know you will continue to impact a lot of folks along the way.
That's Thank you for sharing that. And that brings me to another uh, mural that was recently demolished, the one featuring Nelson Mandela. Like you just mentioned how much of a community
Yeah.
like togetherness this brings between us. And Boston's changing in so many different ways. And for people in these neighborhoods, it feels like the change doesn't involve them. So when these murals that represent so much meaning to the community are demolished to make way for luxury housing, um, it doesn't feel like that change is meant for you. So what would you say to, the Black youth seeing that, their communities being demolished, their history, their togetherness is under threat? What would you do as mayor to safeguard that?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that question, Harrison. You're right. We've got to protect the history of our city. We've got to protect the identity of our culture, whether it's shown through a mural, a public art piece, or even somebody's home. Most recently, I was involved in trying to um, address a piece of what I thought was historic property in Roxbury that somebody wanted to turn into 20 condos. And look, I understand we need housing. I understand development is important, but not at all costs, right? And so we've got to make sure that we can preserve the things that we need to preserve in our neighborhood, such as historic homes, right? Beautiful murals, artwork. This home is a part of the Shirley Eustace mansion. I don't know if you brothers are familiar with the Shirley Eustace mansion in Roxbury, but the Shirley Eustace mansion was the home of Governor Eustace and Governor Shirley of Massachusetts, and they lived right there in Roxbury. And there's a home that we found out that was part of that compound at some point, and that was the homes that the servants stayed in. It was the homes that we believe the slaves stayed in, right? And all of a sudden, that wasn't part of the narrative anymore, right? So I was born and raised 2 streets away from that mansion. Have always heard about that mansion. Have done tours. Have heard lectures, and I've never heard about that house, right? Never heard about slaves being a part of that compound, right? So we found that out recently that might be the case. And so, Harrison, I made sure to, and I found this out as chief of economic development for the city, and I made sure to partner with the residents of that area who raised it and want to make sure that history was preserved, to fight and lend my power as much as I possibly can to help make sure that we preserve that house. Now, that's still an ongoing conversation. And there are other homes throughout the city and other landmarkings and as you say, murals that should get that same consideration. We need to, and I've said that I will do this as mayor, we need a full assessment, a full study, and look at all the murals, look at all the public house, look at all the homes, and architecturally and in terms of historic significance, and come up with a very clear and public catalog of all of the things that folks can't touch. Right now, some of these things we have to preserve if we're going to build around them, or we can keep them. Right, there's ways to keep murals and still build on buildings. There are ways to honor history and still do some things. But we've got to be able to honor history and culture. It's super important. We can't build at all costs. We've got to value and see the people in our neighborhoods and in our city. And as mayor, I'll continue to be committed to that, as I have been for my entire life.
And thank you for another thoughtful answer. And I love how you sort of hearken in on the importance of history and preserving history, but also we heard within that story a little bit about your work with youth. Um, but I'm curious, in thinking about the importance of history and understanding, I'm sure you may have heard this as an Africana Studies major, but we must look forward we must look backwards in order to move forward,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
This concept of Sankofa.
Yes, sir.
Um,
Yeah.
and so my next question is, in thinking about, and this isn't just extending to the issues of murals, we're also thinking about, you touched upon the issues of an unjust or unconstitutional police sweep. But just thinking about the current climate that we're in, how does your background in African American studies inform your current perspective on race and justice for all in the city of Boston? And how are we, as a city, going to ensure our commitment to equity and inclusion in all sectors?
Yeah, no, that's right, Kristen. And as a fellow Black Studies major, I appreciate the Sankofa saying, right? There's another way to say that if we don't learn from our history, we are bound to repeat it, right? And there are painful parts in our history that we've got to make sure that we can't repeat. And so the world goes in cycles, and our world right now has come to another place in this moment right now where all of a sudden people are like, wait a minute, racism, right? There's a people talk about a reckoning. There's an awakening for some, a reminder to others, and for some of us, it's just a continuation of the conversation. But there's now more people in it, right? And in America, as we are having conversations about our past and racism and what it means, not just yesterday, right? But today, what the impacts and the legacy of racism is today. This is an opportunity for us to step into this moment with bold leadership, with real brave and strategic ways to disrupt some of the trends of our racist past. Now look, I'm saying this on May 29th, 2021. This is the 100th year anniversary of the racial massacre in Tulsa, Oklahoma, right? So when a white mob of police officers, residents, and the National Guard went in to destroy what was then known as Black Wall Street, right? They went into an affluent Black neighborhood in Tulsa and murdered and arsoned, set buildings on fire, knocked down buildings, right? And so they took down a place that they were envious of, because Black folks in a world that was segregated had found a world for Black people where they can make money, be self-sufficient, and build wealth, right? We have never seen since Tulsa a place like that again. And when you take down an institution like that, imagine taking down Wall Street. The repercussions of that would be felt for centuries if you took down our institutions on Wall Street. Well, that's what happened in Tulsa for the Black community 100 years ago. The problem was there was no reconciliation or what we would call reparations for that. Land that belonged to wealthy Black folks back there now are part of universities. They then built a highway in the middle of that town afterwards, right? So they really destroyed the town, took land, never gave any kind of reparations back to the family. They made sure they called it a race riot so that people couldn't cash in on insurance policies. And then they took the land and never gave the land back. That, my friend, is an example or a microcosm of what has happened to Black people for centuries. People talk about racism as if, oh yeah, that was slavery way back when, 400 years or whatever. No, this is more recent, and it's been happening for a very long time. When you look at books like The Color of Law, looking at how race was embedded in the U.S. Legal structure, is really powerful because it still exists till today, and there are impacts. So now you look at things like wealth disparity, right? Wealth disparity, the biggest part of wealth disparity is found in the fact that most Black folks who own homes don't have a lot of equity in those homes. Look, redlining and other legal structures in the United States were institutionalized in a way that we could not, right? When you look at that study where in Boston, the median net worth of a white household is $247,000, and the median net worth of a Black household is $8. That's because the difference in wealth in home ownership, the difference in wealth in the stock market, the difference in wealth in land, in real estate. I mean, those are the types of things that people have been taken from us and have been keeping us from systemically. So as mayor, let's bring this full circle. As mayor, I would both want to make sure that our history is something that we are learning and teaching ourselves about, which includes BPS and our students. It is critical. It is critical that we acknowledge it. It is critical that we not um, trivialize it. But then we need to make sure that we are addressing the policies that we've learned from that history, right? And so making sure that black homeowners are in position, or black residents are in position to be homeowners. Black homeowners are in position to create wealth. That we can, in fact, learn and play in the stock market. You should, and everyone should have a 401k and be building towards retirement, be building towards owning some wealth. But these are things that we've got to be very, very intentional on. We should be able to build businesses, small businesses that we scale. We should be able to have public contracts with the city so that we can actually build a stronger business. We should be able to have opportunities to have capital and apply for loans and get loans, not at high interest rates, but at competitive interest rates like everyone else. I mean, these are the things that we know in studies. These are the things that we know in racist policies that have kept us back. It's time to dismantle that. It's time to make sure that we have an opportunity to be bold and courageous right now to reconcile that and make sure that we have an opportunity to grow with the economy of this city. And as mayor, I would be intentional. I will be urgent to the matter to make sure that we address these tragedies right now.
Yeah, and just hearing your response, I am pleased by your sort of grounding in the history, your understanding. I've heard you reference A. Leon Higginbotham's work, um, and so one of the things I'm curious about is, given these historical injustices that you've recognized, what is your stance on reparations? Do you believe in them, and if so, what would they look like?
Yeah, so before I left the city, a good sister and I, my sister Carolyn Crockett, who was the chief of equity, and I got together and we were working with the mayor to begin to look at what a reparations program could look like for Boston. And the mayor joined the roundtable of conference of mayors to look at that, to look at what other cities were doing, to look at what was going on and how they had addressed it. And there are different American cities doing different things right now. They're trying different things to see if they can take it to scale. Boston should be joining that. As mayor, it is something that I am dedicated to, because I was dedicated to as chief of economic development, and we drafted something that would both have monetary considerations or financial contributions. It would also talk about education and educational opportunities that people can have. It would have something that's aggressive around housing and home ownership, because it's really critical. And then the last piece of it was looking at how we can create opportunities for jobs in a way that was special and career enhancement. These are the things that we've got to do and be intentional on. This is the time. This is the time, and we need a mayor that's in there that's ready to take these on.
Mr. Barros, I would just like to point out that as we look across the candidates for mayor, you are an outlier in a sense, as you're the only Black man running for the seat. Have you noticed any sort of differences or challenges, or what would you bring unique to the mayoral seat?
No, I have not said this publicly, Harrison, but I'll say it with you, right? I am going to announce a Black men, Black and brown men and boys program for the city of Boston. So depending on when you broadcast this, I would have already announced it, or I would have been getting ready to announce it. I've been talking to many black and brown men and boys in the city about their realities, their experiences. I just sat down with MBK 617. I sat down with a brother who owns a restaurant. I don't know if you guys have been to Rhythm and Raps over there on Commonwealth Ave. That is a good vegan shop. And if you haven't been there, you got to check it out, right? So me and his brother was sitting there on a little podcast, actually, with a little bit of Tribe Called Quest in the background, right? And just talking about him being a black owner in the city of Boston and what that means. But I want to elevate those images. I want to elevate those people. I want to be able to support brothers, as we should support, women of color. We should support men of color. There's no question about it. And as mayor, I would want to do both. But it struck me the other day, Harrison, as I was thinking about this and talking to people, the new numbers that came out on COVID-19. And I don't know if you brothers have heard, right? But during the pandemic, the numbers around the opioid crisis really were exacerbated, right, in terms of deaths. Recently, data was released on Wednesday to show that the overdose deaths in Massachusetts increased by, I think, 5% in 2020 as compared to the year before, 2019. But the thing that's really struck me is that for black men in Massachusetts, we saw a spike of 69% in overdose deaths over this time last year, over 2020 over 2019. That is an alarming increase. And we now are seeing in the Massachusetts Avenue, Melanie Cass area an increase on HIV infections. And many of them are black and brown men. We've got to make sure that we're ringing the bell to make sure that our brothers are being protected, being called upon, are part of the conversation, are active, are informed, and know what's going on. And so for me, as a black man, I feel like I've got to not just talk about equity as it relates to everyone else. I got to make sure I'm supporting my sisters, but I also got to make sure I'm supporting my brothers, right? And so black and brown men in the city of Boston far too often find ourselves dealing with disparate incomes in a lot of different areas in society. When Obama first issued the call for cities to stand up My Brother Keepers programs, I quickly jumped in, and the mayor allowed me to co-lead the effort to start up a My Brother's Keepers program in Boston, and we did that. And I'd love to make sure that we're doubling down on that effort when I become mayor to make sure that we are doing the work that we need to do around reentry, that we are doing the work that we need to do around workforce development, that we are doing the work that we need to do around health and health disparities, that we're doing the work that we need to do around education all around. These are important things for us and important things for our community.
In addition to that, you're also the only candidate that's run against a former mayor, Marty Walsh. How has that been in working with him, and then now you're up for the seat again?
Yeah, I'd like to say, Harrison, that this is not my first time in the rodeo, right? I've done this before, and in fact, I have a lot of experience in not only campaigning for mayor, but I've got experience as 7 years in helping to run the city, right? And so I can hit the ground running. I can come in and talk about what I can do in 100 days and know how to do it and talk about how I can implement it. And so when I talk about building housing, affordable housing for the people of Boston, I'm very clear on how we can move that agenda and get more done. When I talk about making sure that, Madison Park is a better school that allows for better programming, and that our young people can have internships and apprenticeships and have experiences that help them to have stronger careers. I know exactly what needs to be done and how to do it. When I talk about rebuilding our neighborhoods and making sure our neighborhoods and our neighborhood building effort is led by residents, including young people, I know how to do it. I know I've been there. I've done that work. When I talk about the school committee, having a youth that is voting on it and making sure that young people are supported and that our schools are strong. I've got the experience to know how to do it. So in many ways, not only have I run before, but I've run city government, and that makes me different than other candidates. All the other candidates are on the legislative side, Harrison, so they've done some good job in ordinances and laws. I've implemented them. And I've balanced the budget while doing it, making sure that we have a AAA bond rating for 7 straight years, and so that with the team that I worked with at City Hall, and so I bring that kind of experience and executive skills to this.
Thank you. Um, and so, and just thinking about just your life and experience and all of your accomplishments as we read through your bio, um, and again, this goes back to sort of childhood and development and mentorship. Who has been an important figure in your life or figures in your life that have inspired you, motivated you, and sort of drive you to do the work that you do?
Yeah, Kristen, I appreciate that because I recognize that in none of my journeys or things that I was able to do that I do them alone, right? I always had, and I was blessed to have elders around me that when they needed to, they smacked me upside the head, made sure I was walking a straight line, and that was important. But also to counsel me and to make sure that I had the right advice. I became the executive director at a very young age. I became executive director of the Dudley Street Neighbor Initiative at 26 years old. I had just turned 26, and you know, I knew I could do it. Why? Not because I thought I was really smart, and because I had the right people around me, right? And it started with one of my mentors, who's the lifelong mentor, continues to be a mentor. It's a brother named Gus Newport, the first mayor of Berkeley, California. And Gus would always he'd always greet me with a hug and a big kiss, right? And he's just a big old teddy bear, smart as sharp as all hell. And Gus, I remember when I called him about the job at DSNI, and we started talking about how I could do it, and he started thinking about who could be part of my kitchen cabinet, right, for that job. And he had often talked to me about making sure that I had different people in different parts of my life that could give me good advice, right? And so in my spiritual development, I've always had a spiritual director. In my professional development, I had a series of professional mentors and advisors. As executive director of Dudley Street Neighbor Initiative, I had Gus and a number of other people that would be there to talk to me about the things that I needed to talk about and make sure that I was on firm grounding. Gus continues to be that friend. He continues to be that mentor, and I think in every aspect of life, we should always find people that might have walked that path before and have some wisdom to bring to the kinds of things you're trying to decide on or the kind of place you're trying to go to. And so I'm a huge firm believer of not only searching out mentors, but also being available to mentees, which is something that I think is super important as we do this work. I think, Harrison, you said it, making sure that we're there and available to mentor those that are coming in the same path, right behind us, right? And just to kind of say, hey, by the way, there's a door on that left when you walk down around that corner, or there's a window, duck, because maybe there's some stuff coming out of it, right? Whatever the advice may be, it's important for us to have mentors and be available to mentees. And so I've been blessed, Kristen, to have them. I just talked to Gus, so I raise him as an example. If you look him up online, the brother's done some really amazing things. He connected me with Danny Glover. So now I have the opportunity to say Danny's another mentor of mine. And a friend, but that really came through Gus, as Gus tried to put the right people around me to make sure that I had what I needed. Another sister that played a role like that for me, and another brother was Jennifer Henderson, who was in Nevada, has played an amazing role of consultant, advisor, guidance, and then her husband, who's now passed, Tom. was amazing in the same role. Very different advisors to me, but have been critical to my development.
Thank you, Mr. Barros. I just want to ask you, so we all love music, and I personally want to know, what are you listening to these days? I want to know a new age artist, and you gotta teach the young cats. Give me an old school too. So I just give it all.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. That's good, Harrison. I love music. I love music. I was just telling you guys, I was at Rhythm and Raps the other day, and man, I can't believe how much I miss Tribe Called Quest. And so, if you haven't heard Tribe, you got to go grab it. And that album, oh, drawing a blank with um, that first album. Ooh, but you got to go listen to a little bit of Tribe. It's great stuff. And then let me go to a local artist real quick and a local brand, local name for the two of you guys, Jazz Urbane. Check this out. This is production by a local artist named um, Bill Banfield and a group that he's put together. It's produced the producer, Ron Dorsey. These are all friends of mine. Bill is the study. He's a professor of African American music at Berkeley College. He's a mentor to many artists, many of them black artists here in Boston. They're opening a jazz lounge in Newbern Square to do live music and bring that kind of ambiance and production to the city of Boston. I am super excited to have helped them as chief of economic development, and to now help them have left that job to as much as I possibly can and make sure that comes to life. And then I want to go to this other brother. What's his name with the Afro beats? Somebody help me.
Not WizKid.
It's not WizKid. I love WizKid.
I love WizKid, but that's too easy. Come on, Harrison.
Davido.
Huh?
Davido.
Yes, that's him. That's who I want to call out, right? He just won a Grammy, right?
I think so.
I think
I don't watch the Grammys.
No, I think he just won something, and I'm feeling those beats, man. I'm feeling those. But WizKid, you can easily say WizKid, but and everybody know who we talking about.
Facts. So I love to hear that you're supporting the music, because I'm also huge music lover over here too. But as a former youth leader yourself and activist, I just want to know what's your plan for incorporating the upcoming youth into some of the policy and changes in Boston. Like, how are you intending to integrate all of the young people and what we have to say, so we're really working together, so it's not feeling like, old people are like in power. We want to feel like, Boston's for the youth too.
Yeah, Harrison, great question. Quick story. So when I was 17 and a member of the Dudley Street Neighborhood Initiative, we decided that the young people, one of the things we decided to do, we were going to run me for the board of directors for Dudley Street Neighborhood Initiative. Now, I wasn't 18 yet, but it didn't matter to us, right? Young people needed to be part of that board. We needed to have our voice heard. So I ran, and I was the second highest vote getter, right? Because the adults in the neighborhood were like, "Hey, look at this young person coming in here and trying to be part of this work at that level." And so they were really excited. But some of the adults on the board, they were like, "Wait a minute, he's not an adult yet. He's not old enough to make those decisions. What about liability? What about the law?" I mean, they came up with a number of different reasons. So we got some lawyers involved, and we held some meetings, and folks agreed, in fact, that I could. And so they gave me the ability to vote. That I remember that fight. It was an important fight for me, and it was an important fight for young people in that organization. in that movement. But it was also important for those adults to learn, in fact, that young people use this phrase, young people are our future. Amen. They are. But young people are our present today. We need to engage them today in what's happening because it's super important, because they're such an important part of our city, such an important part of our community, and they're such an important part of the energy that we feel and that we vibe from. And so as mayor, I would do two different things. One is the school committee would have a voting member, and then I would look to add a second seat for a young person on the school committee. Because if you add a seat, if you add a voting member to the school committee, you need a tiebreaker. Add another young person. Because I remember at one point we decided at DSNI that being a solo young person on the board was too lonely. You needed almost a partner. You needed somebody who you can talk to and share your experiences with. And so having a second young person is really important. The second thing I would do is we have a youth council as part of the mayor's youth council as part of the city. The youth council needs to be involved in all aspects of policy decisions at city, right? And so young people need to have a voice in all of the things that we do at the city. We need to plug them in. We need to do them through internships. We need to do them to the mayor's youth council. We need to do them to making sure that the young people maybe are coming up with ideas and presenting them. Young people need to be a part of the decision making of what's happening in our city. It's critical, not so much so they can be amazing people tomorrow, but so that we can be an amazing city today. And so as mayor, that's what I would like to do. It's been my history. It's been my past. It's what I've done since I was a young person and as an adult. And I'd love to make sure that it happens when I am the mayor of the city.
Thank you. And just to be mindful of our time, I would like to sort of transition us to our closing. And to close, I would really like for you to offer a statement to the city of Boston, especially and particularly thinking about the youth. Um, and so I point to an article, and many youth are concerned. They're saying, we don't have enough Black businesses, we don't have enough Black spaces in our city. And I think a lot of people are excited now that they're starting to see places like the Pearl pop up, that they're starting to see our barbecue places open up. So there's excitement surrounding that. But a lot of people are still concerned, and a lot of people reference this GBH article, sorry, and the headline, and this has caught on to people in particular. It says Black-owned businesses have been largely shut out of Boston contracts, city study shows. And then it cites that less than one half of 1% of prime contracts the city of Boston awarded to private enterprises over 5 years went to Black-owned businesses. And so we're coming on the other side of the pandemic. We have all of this excitement around Black businesses. How can we ensure that we are supporting our businesses once they are established? Because that is crucial. We need these establishments, and we need them to be enduring, like our monuments, like our history, like our culture. And I would just like to uh, offer that as a closing space for you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the ability to close in that space because, the amazing thing, Christian, is I helped to lead that study, right? So that study is a disparity study. It's a legal document that put together to, in fact, show what we had already known. There is no time in the history of Boston that Black businesses have gotten their fair share of contracts. There's no time. And so when I went in there in 2014, I looked at what it would take to change that. And what I found was that the efforts that had been done before had all gone to court and failed. And that what we needed was a legal document, a sound disparity study to set new goals. So at the end of that disparity study, the mayor signed a new goal that now 25% of the discretionary spend of the city of Boston would have to go to women-owned businesses or minority-owned businesses. That's $170 to $180 million a year. It is a lot more than we've ever seen at any time in Boston's history. I'm proud of that. But we still got a lot of work to do to hit that goal, right? There's still a lot that we need to do. Now, when as chief of economic development, I'm proud of the fact that I worked with Luther and his partners to open up Pearl. Super proud of the capital that I was able to give them, the technical assistance we were able to provide. I'm proud of Soleil in Dudley Square, now Nubian Square, right, which was opened by the sister named Cheryl Strader. I'm proud of working with the brothers at Jazz Urbane to help launch the concept around a black-owned jazz lounge in the city of Boston, right there in Nubian Square. There are a number of businesses like that I helped to kick off as chief of economic development. I'm proud to have provided the largest professional contract to any black-owned business in any time in the city's history to a sister that helped to create a campaign called All Inclusive. And I did that right before I left office. But it's sad that these are things that I can rattle real quickly, right? I've done some more work in the city. We got to do a lot more than that, right? We got to go, we got to build, we got to do. But a lot of it starts with access to capital. We just don't have, and I hear it all the time, access to capital. We've got to do better in that. And as mayor, one of the first things that I'll do is establish a fund. Like I established 5 funds during the pandemic to try to help our small businesses survive the pandemic. One of the funds was for businesses that were certified women-owned or minority-owned businesses with the city, right? And so just made sure that they were getting the kind of assistance that they needed. Now, I know what it takes to run a small business because I'm a small business owner. I don't know if you guys have gone to my restaurant on Bowden Street in Dorchester, Restaurant Cesaria. Proud to have that there in that neighborhood. Proud to have hosted for a very long time the students, when we could do live shows, the students from the Boston Arts Academy. An amazing talents were coming from BPS to perform at the restaurant. And we need to see more of that throughout Boston. We need to see, and as mayor, I would create a tax credit so that we can see more artists from our neighborhoods, more artists from the city, local, young people performing at our venues, whether they're restaurants or other cultural venues throughout the city, to make sure that we had an outlet for that, and so that we can have businesses be strong, but we also have artists, which is a different type of business, right? Be strong and grow in the city. Look, I appreciate you giving me that question to close because that's my life's work. Ever since I was 14 years old, I was trying to build a city that could work for all of us, no matter your background, no matter your color, no matter your race. And Boston's made some improvements. We got a long way to go. We got a long way to go to address the wealth gap. We got a long way to grow to address the income gap. We got a long way to go to address the opportunity gap that we see for our students, the achievement gap that we see in our schools. But we can do this. We can continue to improve. We can continue to look at how we handle reparations right now and make sure that people have an equal shot at wealth and wealth creation in our city and in our country. Boston can lead the way on that. We've got the smarts, we got the people, and we just need the political will and the leadership to get in front and make sure that we bring the entire city together to do it. That's what I'm excited about. That's why I'm excited. And young people need to be at that table. Not tomorrow, today. They need to be a part of that movement, a part of that energy to make sure that Boston is moving in the right direction. Young people of all backgrounds, young people of all persuasions need to be a part of that conversation in a way that allow us to be a city that is identity affirming, a city that is anti-racist, a city that makes sure that we're embracing and seeing all of us. And as mayor, that's what I'd be excited to do. And so I just want to thank you again for allowing me to be on this podcast with you to talk a little bit about my experience and a little bit of my vision for Mayor of Boston. And before I forget, man, I've got to say, and if you're interested to learn more, visit me at www.barrosformayor.com because there's a lot more in terms of policy and other ideas that I've got on there that we can't get in this podcast right now.
Thank you.
That was wonderful. And I just like to say thank you for our time. And I just want to be mindful for your time this evening. So thank you again for such a thoughtful and inviting and engaging interview this evening. And so I would just like to say that we look forward to following up with you after this interview. We hope that this can be a sort of continued relationship, whether it be periodical sort of check-ins as far as updates and visions and missions and initiatives. So thank you again for making the time, and it was a pleasure meeting and working with you this evening.
No, I want to say thank you guys, and look, I'm doing a I'm doing a black men's roundtable in about a week, and you guys are invited. We're gonna probably put 10 people around a table, and just talk about a little bit about George Floyd, a little bit about where we are today, similar to this conversation here, and just kind of flow a little bit, but have it broadcasted, right? It's similar to what you guys did here, and more people need to hear from us. I know that we could have had more people as part of this broadcast, but I'm proud to have been with the two of you guys having this conversation, and I just want to say thank you for the privilege to have talked to you tonight.
Thank you again.
Thank you. It's been a
And
pleasure.
have a wonderful
Likewise.
evening.
You too. Take care.
Take care.